Ever find yourself, wrestling with building a modern app, feeling like you're just rebuilding the same basic tools over and over?
Oh, definitely. It can be a real grind.
What if you could just sort of sidestep all that? Plug in features that are already built, maybe even expertly crafted.
That's the dream, right?
Well, today, that's what we're diving into. We're looking at the Xuda plugin system.
Exactly. We're focusing on the Xuda platform, specifically this plugin system they've got. The info we have really points to a development environment built for, well, efficiency.
Mm.
And these plugins, they seem key.
Yeah, think of it as a way to instantly add capabilities to your app, but without all that heavy lifting of building from scratch.
Right.
So our mission today is to really get under the hood. How does the system work? What kinds of plugins are there? And, how does it actually help developers build and scale apps faster?
And what's interesting about Xuda right from the start is its focus. It seems aimed at managing pretty big applications,
Yeah.
focusing on performance, scalability, and this plugin system doesn't feel tacked on. It feels really integrated into that idea. Plus, they have this marketplace not just for apps, but for these tools, these plugins too.
Okay, so picture this. You're designing some complex application.
Right.
Instead of writing every single database query handler or, I don't know, building a date picker from zero,
Yeah, the usual stuff.
you might just find a ready-made, tested plugin for it in the Xuda marketplace. So, okay, mechanically, how does it work? How do developers actually use this system to extend their apps?
Well, flexibility seems to be the core principle. Developers can install plugins directly, obviously, but what's really interesting is that users on their agent plan, I guess that's a specific tier, they can upload their own custom plugins.
Oh, okay. Custom plugins too.
Yeah, which straight away suggests, more dynamic system, maybe even collaborative, where the platform's features can grow organically through its users.
That ability for developers to add their own stuff, that could really build a powerful ecosystem, couldn't it? But let's get specific. What are we actually talking about here? What kind of plugins? Our sources break them down into categories, which is helpful. Let's start with DBS plugins. What are those about?
DBS plugins, database service plugins, I imagine. They're really fundamental. They handle all the database stuff, creating, reading, updating, deleting data, CRUD operations.
Standard database work.
Exactly. But the key thing mentioned is this seamless interaction across different database types. So whether you're using MySQL or MongoDB, Postgres, maybe even something custom. The idea is there's a plugin to make talking to it simpler. They act like a sort of translator, an abstraction layer.
So the developer doesn't need to sweat the details of each specific database language.
Pretty much. The plugin handles translating your app's request into what the database understands. It simplifies things, and it probably makes switching databases later on a bit easier too.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I need, say, PostgreSQL, I grab the PostgreSQL plugin, plug it in, and it smooths out the communication. Sounds like a big help for data management.
Definitely could be.
All right, moving on. Framework plugins, what's their role?
These are all about the front end, the user interface. They give you support for popular UI frameworks.
Like,
Well, the examples given are Tailwind CSS, for responsive design using utility classes, and Ionic UI, which is often used for building hybrid mobile apps.
okay, familiar names.
Right. And the benefit here is supposed to be quick integration, getting those framework-specific components and ways of working into your Xuda project faster.
So less time setting up Tailwind or figuring out how Ionic fits in.
Exactly. Streamlines the process, helps keep the UI consistent, and just speeds up that front-end development.
Makes sense. Faster UI building, cohesive look, good stuff. Next category, graphics plugins. What value do these add?
Graphics plugins sound like a built-in asset library. Think icons, stock images, illustrations, things you'd use for the app's visual design and branding.
So readily available visuals.
Yeah, professional-looking visuals right there in the platform. The advantage is clear. You don't have to go hunt them down externally. Saves time, helps maintain a consistent style.
Yeah. Having a matching set of icons instantly available would definitely polish things up quicker.
For sure.
Okay, now library plugins. These sound a bit different, maybe more back-end focused.
That's right. They're described as GI-less, no user interface.
Yeah.
They're back-end tools, workflow optimizers, things that work behind the scenes.
Okay, like what?
Examples given are a Firebase Core plugin, simplifying connecting to Firebase for things like authentication or Firestore,
Oh, okay. Useful.
and also a data processing library, something for handling maybe complex calculations or data transformations on the server side.
Got it. So if your app uses Firebase heavily, a library plugin could handle a lot of the connection setup.
Exactly. It abstracts away the complexity. And for heavy data tasks, these libraries offer pre-built, probably optimized ways to do it.
So common backend needs complex data stuff. These offer ready-made solutions. Saves writing a ton of code, I imagine.
That seems to be the goal.
All right, next up, UI plugins. Now wait, how are these different from the framework plugins we just talked about?
That's a good question. It's a key difference. Framework plugins support entire frameworks, like Tailwind. UI plugins are more granular. They focus on enhancing specific individual UI elements.
Ah, okay. Individual pieces.
Right. Reusable, configurable components. Think of maybe a really fancy drop-down menu with lots of styling options, or a tooltip that you can easily add to any button or image on your page.
So they're like specific building blocks for the interface.
Exactly. If UI plugins are like specific Lego bricks,
And what are widget plugins? They sound bigger.
they are. Widget plugins are described as more comprehensive UI mechanisms. They build more advanced interface sections, often pulling together multiple functions.
Okay, comprehensive mechanisms. Give me an example.
Well, the source mentions a calendar widget, not just displaying dates, but potentially connecting to a database to show and manage events.
Whoa, okay. That's quite involved.
Right. Or a grid widget, think data tables with built-in sorting, filtering, maybe even loading data dynamically from the server as you scroll.
Huh. So these are like mini applications within your application.
Sort of, yeah.
Mhm.
Self-contained, feature-rich components for complex UI parts. That calendar example, pulling data straight from the DB, that definitely simplifies some traditionally tricky development.
It absolutely does. Okay, so we've got all these plugin types. As a developer using Xuda, how do I actually get them? Is it just point and click?
It sounds like it's designed to be pretty straightforward for the pre-built ones. You find them in the marketplace, you install them. Quick way to add features.
And the custom ones.
That's for the agent plan users, as we mentioned. They can upload their own creations, and importantly, they can categorize them, make them discoverable. This really opens the door for sharing, collaboration, maybe even selling specialized plugins within that ecosystem.
Right, so it's not just taking, it's giving back, too. Potentially building a niche around your own tools.
Precisely. Fosters that community element.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've seen the different types, how developers interact. What are the big advantages here? Circling back to our mission, how does the system really give developers, like, shortcuts or superpowers?
I think there are a few key takeaways. First, flexibility. You pick and choose only the plugins you actually need. No unnecessary baggage.
Makes sense. Avoids bloat.
Second, scalability. Need a new feature later. You can often just add a plugin without ripping apart your existing code.
Nice. Less disruptive growth.
Third, and this is a big one, reduced development time. Using pre-built, tested components. That lets you focus on what makes your app unique, not reinventing the wheel.
Huge time saver.
And finally, that community-driven ecosystem we talked about. As more people contribute, the pool of available tools grows, making the platform more powerful for everyone.
Those are definitely significant plus points, especially with how fast things move now. Less time on basics, more time on innovation.
Absolutely.
So how does this whole plugin system fit into the bigger Xuda picture, beyond just the marketplace?
It seems really central.
Mm-hmm.
Xuda is presented as this end-to-end platform, right? Development, deployment, orchestration, scaling, the whole life cycle.
Uh-huh.
The marketplace is the hub for these plugins, but also for full apps and other tools. And Xuda handles the deployment side too, offering various ways to get your app out there. Internal tools, PWAs, public websites, even native apps.
Oh, lots of deployment options.
Yeah, and the hosting to back it up, from basic to enterprise, even branded internal setups. The plugin system is like a core part of that, letting you customize and extend the apps you build and deploy on their infrastructure.
Gotcha. It's all quite integrated.
It appears so.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on the Xuda plugin system, it really offers this wide array of tools from database stuff right up to complex UI widgets.
Yeah, a really diverse toolkit.
It helps developers build faster using pre-made blocks, but also lets them contribute back, fostering this whole ecosystem.
Exactly. It's all about modularity, extensibility, letting developers focus on their unique value add while standing on the shoulders of potentially many other developers' work via these plugins, all within a platform built for scale.
It's quite powerful when you think about adding complex features almost instantly. A different way of building software, really.
It is. It really highlights that shift towards component-based development and leveraging community efforts.
This has been super insightful. Really understanding how these systems work gives you a clearer picture of modern app development.
And it leaves us, and you the listener, with a final thought to chew on. With systems like this Xuda plugin system making development so modular and potentially much faster,
Mm.
how might this change the game for software development and collaboration in the future?
Mm.
What new kinds of innovation become possible when specialized tools are just a click away and building complex things gets that much quicker? Definitely something to think about.